My name is Algenon Cash, and you are locked in live. Thank you all for joining me for my final segment of today. I hope everyone has had a really good day. It's been a busy day for me. I've had quite a bit going on today. We earlier this morning at around 11:30, we had our Triad Mayor's On for a press conference. We had the mayor of Lexington, Burlington, Greensboro, and Winston-Salem all join us through the Triad Food and Beverage Coalition. And we spent this morning calling on Congress to pass the Restaurants Act and provide immediate financial relief to the food and beverage industry. Congress is back in session for the lame duck this week, so we did complete that today. And then I also, on the full Locked In show today, I had Greensboro Mayor Nancy Vaughn lock in today. So go find that full conversation. That is available on Facebook. It was a really interesting conversation. I enjoyed it, actually. I made a video talking about the mayor's tougher enforcement action a couple of weeks ago, and maybe I sounded like maybe I got a couple of facts wrong, and so Mayor Vaughn wanted to correct me, so we brought her on the full Locked In show to do so, and I encourage you to go find that show again on the Facebook page. It will be available on YouTube tonight. If you're a YouTube subscriber, you will get a notification. So today I want to talk about a few key stories. We got a big announcement that came out today from a good friend of mine, Congressman Mark Walker. Also, the Attorney General, William Barr, came out with a sort of an interesting announcement today related to some of the electoral fraud that has been accused by the Trump administration. Also, the Senate Republicans and Democrats actually pulled together a bipartisan plan for COVID-19 relief that I'm going to try to break down for you. And literally just before I went live, I saw another update. It's been a busy news day. Saw another update where Trump is asking Republican voters why vote. Of course, that's ahead of a key Senate vote down in Georgia. They're in the middle of a runoff. So let's get started. Before we start, I also got some news today that a really good friend of mine, Congressman Ted Budd and I have known each other for many years. We actually went through the North Carolina Institute for Public Trust together at Wake Forest. So I've known Ted for a while. He's a smart guy, a business owner, and he's also a servant up in the United States House. He has been diagnosed with COVID, and so that news came out actually a little earlier this evening. I have been in contact with Congressman Budd, and he is doing well. In fact, he texted me back and said that he's doing perfectly fine. He is quarantining on his farm in Davie County, and so our prayers and our thoughts are with Congressman Budd. And we pray that he has a speedy recovery and so that he can return to Washington and just get back to normal life. I do know several people that have caught this virus, and I will tell you that if you actually do catch this virus, it is very serious. You can be in a lot of pain, and it can be really hard to deal with. So again, our prayers are with Congressman Budd on tonight. Also, big announcement that happened today. Another good friend of mine, Congressman Mark Walker, who is actually retiring from the United States House in January. He chose not to run for re-election in the 6th District, but he announced today that he is going to be seeking, he is going to be a candidate for the United States Senate in 2022. And so there was a video announced. I will be honest with you because I always stay locked in. I'm always locked in. So I actually knew about this announcement for several weeks, and it was really hard to sort of keep it to myself because I've been so excited about it. I'm a huge fan of Congressman Mark Walker, and again, he has decided that he is going to run for Richard Burr's seat in 2022 for the United States Senate. So I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot more about that and a lot more from his campaign. There's a really slick video that they released today that's available on his Facebook page, or you can just go to the Locked In page and you can find the video there. You may see a special cameo from someone that you know. That's right, I had a little spot in the video. You got to look really hard. But in the big crowd, when they pan down and center in on Congressman Walker and his wife, you'll see me standing there behind him. And that is to be symbolic to let people know that I do stand with Congressman Walker. So I'm very excited about his candidacy. I think he's going to be a strong candidate, not only in the primary, but certainly in the general. And in fact, I do believe that Walker has the horsepower to see this all the way through across the finish line and could be, victorious. We will have Congressman Walker on the full Locked In show. That'll be this Thursday at 1:45. You may see him doing a couple of small, short interviews with some of the local television stations, but we will be the first to have Congressman Walker sit down for a long-form interview, and that's actually going to happen on Thursday at 1:45. You will see some type of an announcement or invite that appears on the page. You are more than welcome to join us, and I strongly encourage you to bring questions and join us for that conversation. Again, that's on Thursday at 1:45 here on Locked In. All right, so let's get into a couple of news stories here. The one I want to start with is about Attorney General William Barr. Today, Attorney General Barr disputing President Donald Trump's persistent baseless claims. Attorney General William Barr declared Tuesday the United States Justice Department has uncovered no evidence of widespread voter fraud that could change the outcome of the 2020 election. Barr's comments, which were in an interview with the Associated Press, contradicted the concerted effort by Trump to subvert the results of last month's voting and block President-elect Joe Biden from taking his place in the White House. Barr told the AP that U.S. attorneys and FBI agents have been working to follow up specific complaints and information they've received, but to date, we have not seen fraud on a scale that could have affected a different outcome in the election. And I understand already that that's a tough pill to swallow for many of my conservative friends who are still dissatisfied with the outcome of the election, and certainly may not be the news that you may want to hear. I continue to say that the president has every right and authority to continue to pursue whatever legal pathways may be available to him, but it does appear that that pathway is becoming more and more narrow. And so if we stay on the current course, then I totally would expect that on January 20th, President-elect Joe Biden will become President Joe Biden, and we will be moving into a new administration. I am thankful, and I talked about it here the other night, I am thankful that President Trump decided to let the transition move forward, because simply, again, while he pursues some of the legal questions that he may have, it's important that we allow a smooth and peaceful transition to start to occur. And so that is underway. Obviously, you've been hearing a lot about some of the appointees that Biden is already nominating for certain key posts. And again, I think that's going to continue and move right along. So I do think that President Trump and his legal team will continue to fight this. I know there have been some indications that they may take this all the way to the Supreme Court. And there certainly is a pathway that still exists for the president to be victorious and still to perhaps see another term. There is a pathway that exists for that, but I want to be very honest with my audience that pathway is extremely narrow, and I think the probability of a successful outcome is very, very low. In other news, and this is a really interesting news story, President Trump shares a post asking, why bother voting for Republicans? And that's ahead of a key vote that could decide the Senate. So for you all, and I know I've done a great job at keeping my audience educated, but there's a runoff election that's occurring right now down in Georgia. So Senator Dave Perdue as well as Senator Kelly Loeffler, who were both running for re-election in those Senate races, those key Senate races in Georgia, there's a really quirky rule that if a candidate doesn't get at least 50% of the vote, that race has to go to a runoff. And so that's exactly what's happening right now. I will tell you that if you look historically in Georgia at runoff elections, they oftentimes favor Republicans. Republicans do a really good job of getting their voters back out for a runoff, unlike Democrats, where you see a lot of voter turnout drop off from the general election to the runoff. So I do believe as long as Republicans can continue the enthusiasm and the momentum and get their supporters back out in January, that they will be successful in Georgia. And the one thing that I want my audience to stay focused on, okay? Republicans do need to win both seats. We cannot win one seat in Georgia. We need both in order for us to maintain a balance of power in Washington, D.C. If the Democrats win one, they already have Kamala Harris who can vote in a tie. And so that would essentially give Democrats control of the House, the Senate, as well as the executive branch. So I do think it's very important for Republicans to retain control of the Senate so that we have a balance of power, and that balance of power is most often achieved effectively through divided government. So that continues to go on, and I think it's very short-sighted. I think that's probably a nice way to put it, that if the president is encouraging his supporters to boycott or not participate in the runoff election just to spite Republicans and certain Republicans who may not be as vocal as the president would like when it comes to his election challenges, I think that that's very short term and it's very it's horrific strategy. And in the end, if it goes the wrong way, it could really severely impact Republicans over the next 2 to 4 years. And I don't really understand why the president would particularly want to be responsible for that outcome. So if you have friends in Georgia, I need you to contact them. I need you to encourage them to make sure they get out to vote. They need to take a friend with them to vote. That friend needs to take a friend. But that is probably one of the biggest races right now in modern political history, is the Georgia Senate runoff election. And so that's something that we are going to continue to watch here very closely here at Locked In. All right, so my last key story for the night, and certainly not least key story, but certainly a big one. Today there was a bipartisan $900 billion coronavirus stimulus plan that was introduced. I think this was mostly led by the Senate, from what I understand. The Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, has already rejected the bipartisan plan that was put forward. The plan was aimed to address the expiration of key economic aid programs, including unemployment insurance extension. It's important to note that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, they have not had any talks on relief since the 2020 election. So we are coming up on 30 days since the Senate Majority Leader and the House Speaker had any conversation about coronavirus relief. It goes on to say the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell rejected a proposed bipartisan coronavirus stimulus package amid months of congressional inaction on curbing the economic damage from the outbreak. Quite frankly, I had no idea that we would make it this far without a stimulus bill. I knew we would not get a stimulus bill in August, because many of the Washington insiders that I'm friends with had already indicated to me that would not happen. We were told that most likely it would happen in September. It would certainly happen before the election, and it still has not happened. We are now entering the lame duck legislative session, where it is very difficult to get anything done. And so there's no way that I and many others that comment on politics and political news, there's no way we would have known that this would have dragged out as long as it has. And it's something that is horrific. And in the middle of it, we got a lot of people that are going to be victims if we don't figure out how to get some aid. And again, we had a press conference today with our triad mayors calling on Congress to act. If Congress does not act and pass some substantive financial aid for the food and beverage industry, you could see 75%. I'm going to say that number again, 75% of all restaurants and bars may shut down permanently this winter, simply because they don't have the financial resources to navigate through these cold and dry winter months with a virus that's surging the way that it is. The Kentucky Republican, meaning Mitch McConnell, who has supported about $500 billion in new aid spending, said he wants to pass what he calls targeted relief. McConnell said he spoke to White House officials about what President Donald Trump would sign into law. He plans to offer potential solutions to GOP senators and get their feedback. He went on to say, "We just don't have the time to waste," he told reporters in response to the roughly $908 billion plan put together by bipartisan members of the GOP-controlled Senate and the Democrat-held House. McConnell said a must-pass spending bill and pandemic relief provisions will all likely come in one package. Congress needs to approve funding legislation by December 11th to avoid a government shutdown. That's a very important date that I want my audience to keep in mind. December 11th is coming up very quickly. If they do not pass any legislation by December the 11th, we will go into a government shutdown. That in itself would be a crisis on top of a crisis on top of a crisis. So we are dealing with a pandemic, which is a health crisis. We're dealing with an economic crisis. And here certainly soon, if we don't have some kind of action out of Congress, we could be dealing with a crisis in government or a crisis in leadership. The framework of the bipartisan relief bill that was released today includes $288 billion in small business aid, such as Paycheck Protection Program loans, which we all think in the small business, in the whole small business community, the PPP loans were the biggest lifeline that the government was able to get out this year. And if we could get another round of PPP funding, I think you could see not only a large number of restaurants, but just a huge number of small businesses would be back in a position where they may be able to survive the winter and get back to April or May. So I do think the Paycheck Protection Program was largely successful, and we should be looking to re-up that program to help our struggling businesses get through the winter months. They also proposed $160 billion in state and local government relief. I know a lot of conservatives have a problem with that. They don't think we should be providing funds and aid to state and local government. I'm on the opposite side of that. I take more of an economic view on that particular issue. If we do not help state and local governments, then they will start to do massive layoffs. As they lay off more people, it will cause the unemployment rate to go higher at a time where the economy is already weak and soft. And so this isn't a point where we want state and local governments to start curtailing their budgets. We actually want them to keep spending and keep investing so that we can keep the economy moving forward. Not to mention our state and local governments are responsible for some of the most critical and essential services, whether that's public safety, healthcare, transportation, you name it. And if we don't figure out a way to fund these critical needs, not only could you see a curtailment in actual layoffs in terms of state and local governments cutting back, but you could also see them actually try to curtail public services, which would also have a huge impact on local and statewide communities. They also proposed $180 billion to fund a $300 per week supplemental unemployment benefit through March. I was not largely in favor of the supplemental unemployment program that they did earlier this year. I thought the amount was too much. The program itself was fine. I just thought the $600 a week was a little too rich. Personally, I would support the $300 per week. One, it's a lower amount so that you still have an incentive for people to get out and work for those who can and feel like they can keep themselves safe. But then also by using or utilizing a lower amount, you can stretch it out much further so you actually help people for a longer period of time. And I think that's equally important. It would put $16 billion into vaccine distribution, testing, and contact tracing, funnel another $82 billion into education, and put $45 billion into transportation. It would allocate funds for rental assistance, childcare, and broadband. I would say that rental assistance is something that's very important that we need to look at. Up until now, what we've been doing is using a moratorium on evictions to keep people in their apartments and their homes and so forth. The problem with that is when you have a moratorium on evictions, it doesn't necessarily stop the clock in terms of the balance going higher. So when that moratorium goes away, you've got a really large balance that you have to try to pay off, which most people won't be able to do that. And so then they're going to lose their homes or their apartments almost overnight. Not to mention, when you put a moratorium on evictions, you're not really helping the landlord either, which is pretty important. You want to be able to help the landlord, because if the landlord can't pay his or her mortgage, then him or her can't continue to operate the facility or the property or the asset. So rental assistance is a great way of helping the tenant stay in the home and not go homeless. But rental assistance also puts funds in the pocket of the landlord and the owner so that they can actually hold on to the asset. The proposal would not include another direct payment to most Americans, so no direct payments, which is what we call stimulus payments. A lot of people were asking for that. It also would offer temporary federal protection for coronavirus-related lawsuits, a provision Democrats have opposed. That is a big Republican idea. Actually, I support that idea. What that would do is protect businesses from frivolous lawsuits from people that want to file a class action lawsuit claiming that a particular business was responsible for giving them coronavirus. Now, it doesn't take away the gross negligence aspect of it. So if a business is not following the rules, the restrictions, and their employees aren't wearing masks, or they're not sanitizing things, or they're not doing what they need to do to keep people safe, of course they would still be open to a lawsuit. Democratic Senator Mark Warner, Virginia, a member of the congressional group that has discussed a new relief plan, earlier called it an interim package to provide support until President-elect Joe Biden takes office in January. So in other words, they want to create a bridge from where we are to when Joe Biden comes in office. You need to know that House Democrats really believe the stimulus package should be much larger in nature. So not $900 billion. They really want something that's more around the $2.5 trillion mark. I think the original HEROES Act that passed out the House was $3 trillion, and then they've tried to negotiate down, from there. So that's one of the primary stories coming out of Washington today. I don't think the bill or the idea or the bipartisan plan, it doesn't sound like it's going to go anywhere. Mitch McConnell has basically a death grip on the Senate, so if he's not happy with it, or if he doesn't think it's something that he can actually get through and the president's going to sign, I don't think he's going to waste the time on it. The other thing that's really causing this process to get complicated is that, again, as I mentioned, next week, December the 11th, if we don't pass some legislation to continue the government operation, the government's going to shut down. So I really believe we're in this conundrum where the Senate's going to have to figure out what do they really want to focus on. Now, I think there's going to be a push to try to focus on both at the same time, but I do believe Senator McConnell has already indicated that he has no appetite for that particular process. So, like always, if you'll just stay locked in with me, I'm going to continue to keep up with this for you. I'm going to keep doing the research, and we'll make sure that you stay educated, you stay informed about what's happening. As always, if you like what you heard, we are working hard to grow our audience. This is something that I've kicked off since the summer. We are doing very well with attracting people to our messaging and our content, but we need you to help us. So if you like what you're hearing, if you enjoy being locked in with me, please click like on this discussion. You can also share it with a friend, and you can encourage people to come follow the page so that they get access to the same content that you're enjoying tonight. Also, if you're not a subscriber to the YouTube channel, I know you get tired of hearing me say it, please go subscribe. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you will get notifications when we upload new content. There is content that we place on YouTube that you wouldn't necessarily see on Facebook. So you want to be locked into both. Not to mention, I am on Instagram and Twitter, and we also put original content over there as well. So I encourage you to find me on all the various platforms. I do need to let you know tonight that this Locked In Live segment was brought to you by Angela Harriet. Angela Harriet is with Keller Williams here in Winston-Salem. And as I've always tried to share with you, if you're thinking about buying or selling a home, Angela Harriet is the person that I would like for you to call. And when you reach out to her, let her know you're friends with Algenon Cash. She will hook you up. She's going to take really, really great care of you. But again, support Angela Harriet at Keller Williams, because Angela Harriet at Keller Williams is supporting this show and these segments. So make sure you do so. Stay tuned next week. The new podcast, the Locked In, will launch next week. Soon you'll be able to download the podcast on Apple Podcasts, or you can go to Spotify so you can carry it around with you. You'll listen to it at work, listen to it while you clean the house, listen to it while you're in the car, listen to it while you're doing whatever. We will have new episodes available for download on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we're putting the finishing touches on that this week. So look for an announcement coming out next week on that. Again, I would ask you, if you get a moment, go check out the conversation, the full Locked In show that I did earlier today with Greensboro Mayor Nancy Vaughn. It was a great conversation. That's available right now on the Facebook page. It will be available on YouTube later tonight. And then make sure you mark your calendar, because on Thursday, 1:45, I've got Congressman Mark Walker locking in, talking about his new Senate race that he's engaging with. And also tomorrow, if you're a business owner, you've been thinking about maybe converting your business to more of a virtual setup, join us tomorrow at 12:30. I've got Joyce Rice. Joyce has a background in business development, banking, finance, workforce development. Super bright, super smart lady. She's going to be on with us tomorrow. She's going to be walking you through on how you can convert your business to virtual, which is what a lot of people are looking at right now with this pandemic that continues to rage outside of our homes. So until next time, y'all stay locked in.